The colony world of New Busan was beautiful in the morning light. The twin suns rose over green hills and silver cities. Children ran through the streets on their way to school. Farmers worked in the fields that stretched beyond the horizon. 32 million people lived on this world, and they had built something wonderful in just 50 years. They did not know that death was coming from the sky. Admiral Park Sfuho was 3 star systems away when he received the emergency signal. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Resolve, and watched his communication officer's face turn white. The young man's hands were shaking as he transferred the footage to the main screen. Park Suho had served in the military for 40 years. He had seen battle. He had seen death. But nothing had prepared him for what appeared on that screen. The Helix. Dominion fleet hung in orbit above New Busan like a crown of thorns. These were the peacekeepers of the Galaxy Council, the enforcers of galactic law. They were supposed to protect civilized worlds. Instead, they had come to destroy one. The bombardment lasted for 6 hours. The Helix ships fired their weapons without pause. Cities became craters. Forests became ash. The oceans boiled where the energy beams struck the water. The planet's defense systems tried to respond. But they were designed to stop pirates and smugglers, not a full military fleet. New Busan had no warships. It was a farming colony. The people there had believed they were safe because they had done nothing wrong. They were wrong about being safe. Admiral Park Suho watched the footage in complete silence. His officers waited for orders. They waited for him to speak, to rage, to do something. But the admiral simply stood there, his eyes fixed on the screen, watching 32 million people die. When the footage ended, he turned to his crew. His voice was calm, but there was something terrible in his eyes. Something that had not been there before. Set a course for Earth, he said. Maximum speed. On Terra, in the capital city of New Seoul, General Kim Hana received the same footage. She was the commander of the United Earth Defense Forces, the most powerful military human beings had ever built. She had fought in 3 wars and won them all. The alien species of the galaxy respected her. Some of them feared her, but nothing had ever made her feel the way she felt now. She watched the footage 3 times. She watched the cities burn. She watched the hospitals collapse. She watched the schools turn to dust with the children still inside. She saw the evacuation ships trying to escape. She saw the Helix fighters shoot them down one by one. When she finished watching, she saved the footage to a special folder. She labeled it with a single word. Remember? Then she picked up her communicator and called President Yoon Do-yoon. The president was a calm man. He had led humanity through difficult times with wisdom and patience. He believed in diplomacy. He believed in peace. He believed that the galaxy was a place where different species could live together in harmony. That belief died when he saw the footage. Why? He asked General Kim Hana. His voice was barely a whisper. We followed every rule. We signed every treaty. We did everything they asked. Why would they do this? Kim Hana had already read the Helix transmission. She handed her tablet to the president without a word. The message from the Galaxy Council was short and official. It stated that humanity's expansion into new star systems had been deemed excessive and threatening to galactic stability. The destruction of New Busan was described as a corrective measure intended to remind humanity of its proper place in the galactic community. 32 million people had been murdered, and the council called it a correction. President Yoon Do-yoon read the message twice. His hands did not shake. His face showed no emotion. But when he looked up at Kim Hana, she saw something in his eyes that she recognized. She had seen it in her own reflection just an hour ago. Call the Security Assembly, he said, and invite the alien ambassadors. The Security Assembly met in the Great Hall of the United Earth Government. Representatives from every human nation sat in the circular chamber. In the visitors' gallery, the ambassadors of 12 alien species watched with curious eyes. They had heard rumors about New Busan, but they did not believe them. Surely the council not do something so extreme. Then the footage played on the massive screens. The alien ambassadors watched in growing discomfort. Some of them shifted in their seats. Others looked away. The Helix ambassador, a tall creature with 4 arms and silver skin, showed no reaction at all. His species had done this thing, and he felt no shame about it. When the footage ended, President Yoon Do-jeon rose to speak. The alien ambassadors expected tears. They expected begging. They expected humanity to plead for mercy, to promise better behavior, to submit to whatever demands the council might make. This was how young species responded to discipline. This was how the galaxy worked. What they saw instead was something different. President Yoon Do-yoon stood at the podium in absolute silence. He did not cry. He did not shake. He looked at the assembled aliens with eyes that held no fear, no desperation, no hope for understanding. "They believed this would break us," he said. His voice was calm and cold, like ice forming on a winter lake. "They believed we would bow our heads and accept our place. They believed that murdering our children would teach us to be obedient." He paused. His eyes found the Helix ambassador. They were wrong. The alien ambassadors began to murmur among themselves. This was not the response they had expected. This was not how the script was supposed to go. "You are all expelled from Earth," the president continued. "You have 24 hours to leave our space. All communication with the Galaxy Council is hereby terminated. All treaties are dissolved. All agreements are void." The Helix ambassador rose to his feet. "You cannot do this," he said. "The Council will not tolerate such defiance. You will be punished even more severely." President Yoon Do-yoon looked at him, and for the first time, the Helix ambassador felt something he had never felt when dealing with humans before. He felt afraid. "We are not defying you," the president said. "We are not negotiating with you. We are not even declaring war on you." He turned to address the entire gallery, his voice rising. "We are simply done pretending that peace with you is ever possible. Now leave. Before we decide to start with you." The ambassadors left. The communication channels went dark, and humanity began its transformation into something the galaxy had never seen before in her office. General Kim Hannah opened the folder labeled Remember. She looked at the faces of the dead, scrolling across her screen by the thousands. "I promise you," she whispered, "they will pay for this. Every single one of them." The galaxy did not know it yet, but the rules had just changed forever. 3 months passed after the massacre of New Busan. The Galaxy Council waited for humanity to make its next move. They waited for warships to appear at their borders. They waited for angry messages and desperate threats. They waited for the humans to do something stupid that justified destroying them completely. But humanity did nothing. The human territories went completely silent. No ships crossed the borders. No messages were sent. The trade routes that once connected human space to the rest of the galaxy sat empty and dark. It was as if the entire species had simply vanished. The council celebrated this silence. Their analysts wrote long reports explaining that the destruction of New Busan had achieved its purpose. The humans had learned their lesson. They had retreated to their little corner of the galaxy to grieve and accept their inferior position. The crisis was over. The Helix Dominion was especially pleased. They had proven once again that they were the most powerful force in the galaxy. Lesser species would think twice before challenging the established order. They had no idea what was coming. Captain Choi Jisoo had been a soldier for 15 years. She had trained in every form of combat that humanity had ever invented. But the training she received in the 3 months after New Busan was different from anything she had experienced before. It was darker, more ruthless, more terrifying. General Kim Hannah had created a new kind of warfare. She called it the Ghost Protocol. "The galaxy expects us to fight like they do," the general had explained to her special operations teams. "They expect fleet battles and formal declarations. They expect us to follow rules and respect boundaries. We are going to do none of those things." Captain Choi Jisoo led the first infiltration team into Helix space. Her unit was small, just 12 soldiers, but they had been chosen for their skills in stealth, sabotage, and survival. They crossed the border in a ship designed to look like a merchant vessel. Their weapons were hidden in secret compartments. Their faces had been altered by surgery to look more alien. They arrived at a helix, industrial world called Kethrin, for it was not a military target. There were no warships in orbit, no soldiers in the streets. It was a world of factories and power plants, producing the equipment and energy that kept the Helix Dominion running. The attack began at midnight. Choi Jisoo and her team moved through the shadows like ghosts. They did not kill anyone. They did not fire a single weapon. Instead, they planted small devices in very specific locations. Devices that the Helix engine would not find until it was too late. At dawn, the main power grid of Kethron failed completely. Every factory, every hospital, every home lost electricity at the same moment. The backup systems activated, but they failed too. The devices had been planted there as well. The Helix authorities panicked. They searched for the cause of the failure, but they found nothing. The devices had already dissolved into dust, leaving no evidence behind. Security footage showed nothing unusual. Sensor logs recorded no intrusion. It was as if the power grid had simply decided to stop working on its own. 3 days later, the same thing happened on another Helix world. Then another. Then another. The pattern was always the same. No warning. No demands. No contact of any kind. Just sudden, catastrophic failure of critical systems. Power grids went offline. Water treatment plants stopped working. Communication networks crashed and never recovered. The Helix military scrambled to respond. But they did not know how to fight an enemy they could not see. They increased security at their bases and installations, but the attacks kept coming. They arrested suspected spies and saboteurs, but the real attackers were long gone before anyone knew they had been there. Then the disappearances began. A Helix general vanished from his home in the middle of the night. His guards were found unconscious, but unharmed. There was no sign of a struggle. No evidence of how the intruders had entered or left. The general was simply gone. 2 weeks later, his body was found floating in space, 100 light years from where he had been taken. There was a message carved into his uniform. For New Busan, more officers disappeared. More bodies were found. The messages were always the same. The Helix military began to panic. Officers refused to sleep alone. Soldiers reported seeing human faces in the shadows, only to find nothing when they investigated. On the Helix homeworld, the capital city woke up to find that every public screen had been hacked. The same message appeared everywhere in every language. You killed our children. Now you will know what it means to be afraid. It was signed by General Kim Hanna. The Galaxy Council demanded explanations from the Helix Dominion. How had the humans penetrated their security so completely? How were they conducting these attacks without being detected? What was happening? The Helix commanders had no answers. They had fought many wars against many species, but they had never faced anything like this. The humans were not attacking their military. They were attacking their minds. Captain Choi Jisoo returned to Earth after 6 weeks of operations. She had not lost a single soldier. Her team had caused more damage to the Helix Dominion than a full battle fleet could have achieved. And they had done it without firing a shot. General Kim Hanna met her at the landing bay. The general looked older than she had 3 months ago. The weight of what she was doing showed in the lines on her face and the shadows under her eyes. How do you feel? The general asked. Choi Jisoo thought about the question carefully. She had spent weeks living in enemy territory, spreading fear and chaos. She had watched the Helix suffer and done nothing to help them. She had become something different from what she had been before. I feel like I am doing what needs to be done, she said finally. Kim Hanna nodded slowly. Good, because this is just the beginning. Across human space, the preparations continued. Admiral Park Soo-ho was building a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Factories worked around the clock, producing weapons and ships at an impossible rate. Scientists developed new technologies, driven by anger and grief and the need for revenge. The Helix. Dominion had believed that destroying New Busan would break humanity. Instead, It had united them in a way nothing else ever could. Every human in the galaxy shared the same burning desire to make the Council pay for what they had done. The ghost attacks continued for another 3 months. The Helix economy crumbled under the constant pressure. Their people lived in fear, never knowing when the next attack would come. Their military was exhausted, chasing shadows across 100 worlds. And then, just as suddenly as they had begun, the attacks stopped. The silence was somehow worse than the chaos. The Helix commanders knew it meant something. They knew the humans were planning something bigger. They were right. On the anniversary of the New Busan Massacre, a massive human fleet appeared at the edge of Helix space. Hundreds of warships, carriers, and siege platforms emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Admiral Park Suho stood on the bridge of the Eternal Resolve. Looking at the star map that showed Helix territory spread out before him, "Send a message to all channels," he said. "Let them know we have arrived." The message was simple. It contained no threats, no demands, no explanations. Just 3 words that would echo through galactic history. We remember everything. The real war was about to begin. The Galaxy Council met in emergency session for the first time in 200 years. Representatives from every major species gathered. In the great chamber on the Council homeworld of Varith Prime, fear hung in the air like a thick fog. The human fleet had appeared at the edge of Helix space 3 days ago. Hundreds of warships sat in silence, waiting. They had not attacked yet. They had not sent any demands. They simply waited, and that waiting was worse than any weapon. The Helix Dominion demanded immediate action. Their representative High Commander Torith stood before the Council with barely controlled rage in his 4 eyes. "We must strike now," he said, "before they have a chance to organize. Our combined fleets can destroy them if we attack together." The Vorin Collective representative shook her head. "We should negotiate. The humans were clearly wrong to threaten us, but perhaps we can find a peaceful solution." "Peaceful?" Torith's voice rose with anger. "They have been attacking our worlds for months. They have assassinated our officers. They have destroyed our infrastructure. There is no peace with these creatures." The Terith Federation representative raised a tentacle for attention. "We have studied the human response to the New Busan incident. Their behavior does not match any pattern we have seen before. They are not acting like a species preparing for conventional warfare." "What do you mean?" the council chairman asked. "I mean, they are not following any of the rules. In galactic warfare, there are customs, formal declarations, designated battlefields, protection for civilians and non-combatants. The humans appear to have abandoned all of these principles." The chamber fell silent. The rules of civilized warfare had governed galactic conflicts for thousands of years. Every species followed them because the alternative was too terrible to consider. War was terrible enough when there were limits. Without limits, it became something else entirely. "They would not dare," Torith said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. "The consequences would be unthinkable. The consequences have already been demonstrated." The Terith representative replied, "They targeted civilian infrastructure on your worlds. They killed officers in their homes. They have shown us exactly what kind of war they intend to fight." While the council debated, the human fleet moved. Admiral Park Suho had waited long enough. His ships crossed into Helix space and headed for their first target, the way station of Korith Prime. It was not a military base. It was a trading hub, a place where ships refueled and supplies were distributed across the Helix. Dominion, the Helix fleet commander at Koreth Prime, was a veteran named Admiral Dreth. He had fought in a dozen wars and won most of them. When he received word that the human fleet was approaching, he was not afraid. He knew how wars were supposed to work. He sent a formal challenge to the human commander, as custom required. He declared the space around Korith Prime as the designated battlefield. He offered the humans 3 days to evacuate their civilian vessels from the area. He did everything correctly, following every rule that civilized species had followed for millennia. Admiral Park Suho did not respond to any of it. The human fleet arrived at Koroth Prime without warning or ceremony. They did not stop to negotiate. They did not accept the formal challenge. They simply began their attack. Lieutenant Commander Bayuna led the first assault wave. Her squadron of fighters screamed through space toward the Helix positions. Admiral Dreth expected them to engage his warships. That was how battles worked. Fighter squadrons attacked enemy fighters while capital ships fought each other. But Bayuna's fighters ignored the Helix warships completely. They flew past them at maximum speed, heading for something else. What are they doing? Admiral Dreth demanded, confusion breaking through his professional calm. His tactical officer stared at the screen in disbelief. Sir, they are targeting the fuel depots, and the shipyards, and the agricultural modules. That is impossible. Those are civilian facilities. Sir, they are attacking them anyway. The human fighters struck with terrible precision. Fuel depots exploded in brilliant fireballs. Shipyards collapsed as missiles tore through their support structures. The agricultural modules that fed the way station's population were torn apart. Piece by piece, Admiral Dreth opened a communication channel to the human fleet. His face appeared on Admiral Park Suho's screen, twisted with outrage. This is a violation of every law of civilized warfare, Dreth shouted. You are attacking civilian targets. You are committing crimes against galactic society. Park Suho looked at the alien commander with eyes that held no emotion. When he spoke, his voice was broadcast on all frequencies so that every ship in the system could hear. You taught us that civilians are valid targets, he said. When you burned New Busan, you showed us that children and farmers and teachers are acceptable losses. We are simply applying the lesson you taught us. Admiral Dreth had no response to that. The Battle of Korath Prime lasted 6 hours. The Helix warships were powerful and well commanded, but they could not fight effectively without fuel. They could not receive repairs without shipyards. They could not feed their crews without agricultural modules. One by one, the Helix ships fell silent. Their engines died. Their weapons went cold. They drifted in space, helpless and waiting for the end. But the end did not come in the way they expected. Admiral Park Suho did not destroy the helpless Helix ships. Instead, he offered them a choice: surrender and be allowed to leave, or drift until their life support failed. Every Helix ship surrendered within the hour. News: the battle spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. The humans had won a complete victory without destroying a single enemy warship. They had won by breaking all the rules, by refusing to play the game the way it was supposed to be played. General Kim Hanna reviewed the reports from her office on Earth. She felt no joy in the victory. There was no joy left in her anymore. There was only the cold determination to see this through to the end. Her communication system chimed. It was a message from the Voron Collective, requesting a secret meeting. They wanted to discuss peace terms. Kim Hanna considered the request for a long moment. The Voron had not participated in the attack on New Busan. They had simply stood by and watched while it happened. They had filed formal objections through proper channels, while 32 million people burned. She agreed to the meeting, not because she wanted peace, but because the Voron were about to learn a lesson that the rest of the galaxy needed to understand. There would be no neutral parties in this war. There would be no safe positions on the sidelines. Every species that had stood with the Council, every government that had accepted the massacre of New Busan without taking action, would have to choose a side, and if they chose wrong, they would face the same fate as the Helix Dominion. The rules of civilized warfare were dead. Humanity had killed them. And in their place was something new, something terrible, something the galaxy had never seen before. War without limits. War without mercy. The Helix had created this monster when they killed 32 million innocent people. Now they would have to face it. The Voron ambassador arrived at the secret meeting location in a small ship with no weapons. She was a tall creature with pale blue skin and large dark eyes that showed every emotion she felt. Right now, those eyes showed fear. General Kim Hanna was waiting for her in a bare room on a neutral space station. The general wore her military uniform but carried no visible weapons. She did not need weapons. Her reputation was weapon enough. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," the ambassador said, her voice careful and diplomatic. "The Vorin Collective believes that this conflict has gone too far. We wish to help negotiate a peace between humanity and the Galaxy Council." Kimhana said nothing. She simply watched the ambassador with cold, patient eyes. The ambassador continued, her words coming faster now. "We understand that the events at New Busan were tragic. We filed formal protests with the council. We voted against the action in every committee where we had representation. We did everything we could within the proper channels." "You did everything except stop it," Kimhana said. The ambassador paused. "We did not have the power to stop it. The Helix Dominion is much stronger than the Vorin Collective. If we had opposed them directly, they would have destroyed us as well. So you chose to let our people die instead. We chose to survive. Surely you can understand that." Kimhana leaned forward. Her voice was quiet, but something in it made the ambassador take a step backward. "Let me tell you what I understand," the general said. "I understand that 32 million of my people were murdered while the galaxy watched. I understand that every species in the council knew what was going to happen, and not one of them lifted a finger to stop it. I understand that your formal protests and committee votes meant nothing to the children who burned on New Busan." The ambassador's blue skin grew paler. "What do you want from us?" "I want you to open your borders to our fleet. I want you to stop all trade with the Helix Dominion and their allies. I want you to provide us with the locations of every council military base and installation. I want you to choose a side. And if we refuse..." Kimhana smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator looking at prey. "Then I will treat you exactly as I treat the Helix. Your neutrality protected you when we were weak. We are not weak anymore." The Vorin ambassador looked into the general's eyes and saw no mercy there. She saw no room for negotiation, no possibility of compromise. She saw only the cold determination of a woman who had lost everything and had nothing left to lose. The Vorin Collective surrendered. 2 human demands within 1 hour. News of the Vorin capitulation spread quickly through the galaxy. Other species began to panic. If the humans were forcing neutral parties to choose sides, no one was safe. The comfortable position of watching from the sidelines was no longer an option. The Tereth Federation was next. They had been the most moderate voice on the council, always calling for diplomacy and understanding. They believed that they could reason with the humans, that their history of fairness would protect them. Admiral Park. Suho met with their delegation in orbit above a Tereth colony world. His fleet surrounded the planet, hundreds of warships ready to strike at his command. "We were always friends to humanity," the Tereth representative said. "We argued against the attack on New Busan. We tried to prevent it." "We tried," Park Suho agreed. "And when you failed, what did you do? Did you withdraw from the council? Did you cut ties with the Helix? Did you offer us any help at all?" The representative was silent. "You did nothing," the admiral continued. "You expressed your concerns, and then you went back to your normal lives. You traded with the species that murdered our children. You attended their diplomatic functions. You pretended that everything was fine. What would you have had us do? Start a war we could not win?" Park Suho looked at the planet below, a beautiful world of purple forests and silver oceans. Millions of Tereth lived there, innocent people who had nothing to do with the decisions of their government. "I understand your position," he said. "You were afraid? You were practical. You made the safe choice." He turned back to face the representative. "Now you will make another choice. Join us or face the consequences. There is no middle ground anymore." The Tereth joined the Human Alliance the next day. One by one, the species of the galaxy fell into line. Some joined willingly, hoping to be on the winning side. Others joined out of fear, knowing what would happen if they refused. A few tried to resist, and they learned very quickly that the humans were not bluffing. The Helix Dominion watched their allies abandon them. Their great coalition, built over centuries of conquest and intimidation, crumbled in a matter of weeks. Ships that had once flown under the Council banner now flew alongside human fleets. Bases that had once supported Helix operations now provided supplies to their enemies. High Commander Toreth, called an emergency meeting of the remaining Helix leadership. They gathered in a secure bunker on their homeworld, surrounded by the strongest defenses their civilization could build. "How did this happen?" one of the commanders demanded. "We were the most powerful force in the galaxy. We had the Council behind us. We had everything." Torith stared at the tactical displays showing the human advance. Red markers spread across the map like a disease, consuming Helix territory system by system. "We made a mistake," he said quietly. "We thought we could treat them like every other species we had conquered. We thought a show of strength would break them. What do we do now?" Torith did not answer for a long moment. He thought about New Busan. He thought about the 32 million humans who had died in fire because the Council had decided they were getting too powerful. He had approved that attack. He had called it necessary. Now he understood what he had actually done. He had not destroyed a threat. He had created one. "We fight," he said finally. "We fight until we cannot fight anymore. It is all we have left." On Earth, President Yoon Do-jan addressed the people of humanity. Billions watched across dozens of worlds, united by grief and anger and the fierce pride of a species that refused to be broken. "They thought we were weak," the president said. "They thought we would accept our place at the bottom of the galactic order. They thought wrong." Behind him, screens showed images of the human advance. Helix bases falling. Council fleets surrendering. An entire galactic order collapsing before the fury of a species that had nothing left to lose. "We did not start this war," Do-jan continued. "We did not want this war. But they brought war to us, and we will finish it. Not with treaties and negotiations. Not with compromise and understanding. We will finish it completely." The galaxy had ruled by fear for thousands of years. The strong dominant, the weak. The powerful did whatever they wanted to the powerless. Humanity was teaching them a new lesson. Fear could work both ways. And the humans had learned to be very, very frightening. The final battle was coming. And when it came, the galaxy would never be the same again. The Helix homeworld of Verith was burned on the anniversary of New Bus. It was not an accident. General Kim Hanna had planned it this way. She wanted the date to mean something. She wanted the Helix to understand that their punishment was connected to their crime. 1 year ago to the day, they had murdered 32 million humans. Now, they would pay the price. The human fleet surrounded Verith in perfect formation. Thousands of ships blocked every escape route, every supply line, every possibility of retreat. The Helix defenders fought with everything they had, but it was not enough. It had never been enough. Admiral Park Soo-ho watched the battle from the bridge of the Eternal Resolve. His face showed no emotion as Helix warships exploded one by one. He had seen too much death in the past year. He had caused too much death. His soul felt empty, hollowed out by war and grief, and the terrible things he had done in the name of revenge. "The orbital defenses are down," his tactical officer reported. "We have achieved complete space superiority. The planet is defenseless." Soo-ho nodded slowly. "Begin the bombardment." The weapons of the human fleet turned toward the planet below. Energy beams and missiles and nuclear warheads rained down on the Helix homeworld. Military bases were destroyed first, then government buildings, then industrial centers, then everything else. Captain Choi Jisoo stood beside the admiral, watching the destruction. She had led the ground operations that had captured the Helix military command. She had been the one to drag High Commander Torith from his bunker and force him to watch his world burn. "Is this justice?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Admiral Park Soo-ho did not answer for a long time. He thought about New Busan. He thought about the children who had died screaming in the fire. He thought about the parents who had tried to shield their families with their own bodies. He thought about all the innocent people who had done nothing wrong except being human. "No," he finally said. "This is not justice. Justice would mean bringing back the people we lost. Justice would mean none of this had ever happened." Paused, watching another explosion bloom on the planet below. "This is consequence. This is what happens when you hurt people badly enough that they stop caring about mercy." The bombardment continued for 6 hours. The same length of time the Helix had spent burning New Busan. When it was over, the Helix homeworld was broken. Their cities were ruins. Their military was destroyed. Their government had collapsed. A civilization that had dominated the galaxy for 1,000 years was reduced to ashes in a single day. Commander Torith was brought before General Kim Hanna in a prison cell on the Eternal Resolve. He was no longer the proud warrior who had ordered the destruction of New Busan. He was old and broken. A creature who had lived long enough to see everything he believed in destroyed. "Why?" he asked, his 4 eyes dim with defeat. "Why did you have to go so far?" "We could have negotiated. We could have found a compromise." Kim Hanna looked at him with something that might have been pity, if she still had the capacity for pity. "You could have negotiated before you killed our children," she said. "You could have found a compromise before you burned our cities. You chose to show us no mercy, so we learned to show none in return. We were just trying to maintain order. We were trying to keep the galaxy stable. You were trying to keep yourselves in power. You did not care how many people had to die as long as you stayed on top." Kim Hanna leaned forward. "Now you understand what it feels like to be powerless. Now you know what it means to watch everything you love turn to ash." She stood up and walked toward the door. Torith called after her. "What happens to me? What happens to my people?" Kim Hanna paused at the doorway. "You will live," she said. "You will live long enough to see the new order we build on the ashes of your empire. You will live to watch humanity take its place at the top of the galaxy. And you will remember every day for the rest of your life that you created this. You made us into what we are." The Galaxy Council dissolved 3 weeks later. There was nothing left to dissolve, really. Most of the member species had already surrendered to human authority. The few that remained had no power to resist. In its place, humanity established a new order. It was not an empire, not exactly. It was more like a guardianship. Humanity would maintain the peace. Humanity would enforce the rules. Humanity would ensure that no species ever again felt safe enough to murder innocent people without consequence. Some called it tyranny. Some called it justice. The humans called it survival. On Earth, in the city of New Seoul, a memorial garden was built for the victims of New Busan 32. Million names were carved into walls of black stone that stretched 4 kilometers. Holographic images of the dead drifted through the air like falling leaves. A never-ending reminder of what had been lost, President Yoon Do-yeon spoke at the dedication ceremony. He was older now, worn down by a year of war and grief. But his voice was still strong, and his words carried across the galaxy. "We were told that war has rules," he said. "We were told that even in conflict there is honor. We were told that civilized species do not harm the innocent." He paused, looking out at the crowd of mourners. "We believed that once." He turned to face the memorial wall, the endless names of the dead stretching out before him. "They taught us otherwise. They showed us that the rules only protect those who have the power to enforce them. They showed us that mercy is a weakness that others will exploit. They showed us that the only way to be safe is to be so strong that no one dares to harm you." His voice grew harder, colder. "We learned the lesson they taught us. We will never forget it. And we will never again be the species that trusts in the mercy of others." In orbit above Earth, Admiral Park Suho stood on the observation deck of the Eternal Resolve and looked down at his homeworld. The blue oceans and green continents seemed so peaceful from here. It was hard to believe that this small planet had conquered a galaxy. General Kim Hanna joined him at the window. They stood in silence for a long time, 2 warriors who had seen too much and done too much to ever truly be at peace again. "Was it worth it?" Suho asked finally. Kim Hanna thought about the question. She thought about the millions of aliens who had died in their campaign of revenge. She thought about the civilization they had destroyed, the order they had overthrown, the new empire they had built in blood and fire. "I do not know," she admitted. "But I know that if we had done nothing, they would have done it again. They would have kept killing our people until we submitted or died." She turned to look at him. "We had to show them that we are not prey. We had to make them afraid." Suho nodded slowly. "Then I suppose it was worth it." even if it costs us our souls. The galaxy had learned a truth that would echo through the ages. Humanity did not start wars. Humanity did not seek conflict or conquest. But when war was brought to them, when their innocent were murdered and their mercy was repaid with fire, they became something else. Something terrible. Something unstoppable. They became a species that ended wars completely, and the galaxy would never forget the lesson.